All right, so I guess we'll get started. Hopefully maybe a few more people come in, coming late from one of the other sessions. So thanks everybody for joining our session today. Blood, Sweat, and Sales. I'm the sales part of that that gives you trouble. Blood, Sweat, and Sales, Confessions from the Front Lines of the RevOps World. My name is Eyal Orgil. I'm the CRO and a co-founder of DealHub. DealHub is a CPQ, CLM, deal room and billing solution provider. We've got a booth here. I won't plug too much. That's not the goal of the session, but do come by if you have a need. We'll be happy to speak to you about your needs. I've got two esteemed panel members over here with me from the RevOps world. I'll let them introduce themselves in a moment, and then we'll get into the topic of what we're covering today. So.
Yeah. Thank you. Hey, everybody. Thanks for being here. My name's Amie Weizer, and I am the, first off, I say usually I'm a learner, right? At the end of the day, a lot of what we do is changing and evolving. So learner first, but I'm building revenue operations at Zenzai. Zenzai is a human success platform, and what we do is bring learning, performance, and engagement together. So employees who do their best work help organizations get their best outcomes. Over to you.
Hi, my name is Ayelet Germanski. I work for Plextrack. We are a cybersecurity, pen test, analytics, as well as remediation and vulnerability testing. In general, career-wise, I want to call it out. All of us come from different backgrounds, and I think it's important to call out. I did not come from business or operations or marketing or sales. I was a psychotherapist. And I came from a therapy background. So a lot of the skills that we brought in help us today in what we do, which very much relate to our topic today. But in my current role, I am actually building RevOps from the ground up. And it's something that I've been doing in 7 companies in my past history. So it really something that we want to call out, and we want to learn from you as part of this as well.
Yeah, and I'll add to that my background's not traditional either. I actually came from customer success. So I was the one who already knew these sales challenges, and I understood that finance needed a lot of things as well. So having that kind of background to understand that RevOps becomes the glue, and RevOps really sees that multiple different teams need to work together in order to have efficiency and in order to have scalability.
And I'm one here to learn because I'm in a company that's been growing, and we don't have all these processes always in place and all that. So you guys are teaching me a lot of things. We wanted to do things a little bit different today, get a little interaction. I know some people had some great parties last night. Maybe we'll wake people up. We wanted to do almost an FAQ at the beginning, ask your questions, put it out to you. We've got a bunch of topics that we wanted to talk about. But if there's anybody that has any specific things that they want to sort of raise, to call out, that we'll talk about, and it may be part of what we had planned to talk about, or if you have some other things. So if anybody has, feel free. If there's any specific areas that you wanted to ask about, and we'll get our panelists to talk about that, and if not, we'll jump into things that we were looking to go into.
Yeah, what challenges are you having with creating efficiency or driving scalability? What's it like right now in your organizations?
Adapting to change.
Yeah.
Adapting to change, right? So I'll just repeat things here so we'll have it picked up on our camera. Okay.
What part of it?
Well, when the sales team is evaluating their performance and see, how about we launch this new initiative? And this new initiative also drives a bunch of aftermath, which includes trainings and reportings and new processes, and killing the old processes. And usually they come we need to do it on Monday. It's easy peasy, right? And this is always it's frustrating. And also affects our own productivity because we plan all these beautiful things that affect the whole organization. We're trying to be nimble and agile and everything, but sometimes this change happens too fast.
How do you find that helping you, or what communication are you having with your, I'll call it the executive sponsor, right? We'll take sales methodologies and throw it back. Do you have an executive sponsor for those changes that you're trying to implement?
I would say that we have pretty good support from leadership. After hearing a lot of people speaking to this conference, I think that our company is in a better position than others in terms of RevOps. But still, even that, we have weekly alignment meetings bi-weekly alignment meetings with all functional leaders. But even that doesn't always help.
one of the things that I found that helps me, right, is that when we're talking about change is take that executive sponsor and make sure that the change communication comes from them first, right? That's talking about some of the other sessions we've heard in the last 24 hours. You take that and you align it to what's in it for me. Why is the change happening? Why are we doing it? What is your drip campaign, so to speak, in terms of communicating it out going forward, right? If you're talking about timelines overall, how are you understanding that change? How is it aligned to business goals that we're trying to achieve overall? What's the impact gonna look like, right? So a lot of time it is our responsibility to be the sound of reason and push back and saying, I love what you're doing here. I think this is gonna provide amount of value here, here, and here. However, in order for us to implement it with the ability to scale and grow, here's what we need to do. Are you aligned with that vision? Is that okay for you, right? The other thing that you need to think of is, I think one of the sponsors here said there is about 10 changes, or one of the sessions, sorry, about 10 changes in a given year. I don't know about your organization, I think there's 10 changes in a given day.
Yeah.
Okay? What is the fatigueness that you're feeling throughout? How are they aligning to that change, right? How are you providing that behavior? Because every process that we're trying to implement should provide something in return. Are you measuring it? Are you able to do all that? And bring those, and that's why I kept asking, what's your sponsor? And are they supporting you the way you need to be supported? Not by saying, yes, good job, please do this. I'll talk to someone. You need to have them walk the walk with you. And if they're not walking it with you, the change is not going to help, right? You're not going to have those champion walking along the line with you. So you not only need the sponsor, you need the champion from the crowd who's going to do the change, speak to say, yes, I'm already doing it X, Y, and Z, and here's the benefit for me, right? And then you're the one who are dictating how and when it's going to go live, not the other way around. And I know it's hard, but that's why you are the driver, you're the change driver. And you need to call the risks and the falls that you may experience throughout. You're the vocal.
I'll add on to that because it's also about expectations, right? What are the expectations we're setting? When we get a fire drill, is the expectation, no problem, let me just take on another thing. Maybe the expectation could be, okay, we can do this, but here's what you have to give up in order to achieve this thing. Or if we're gonna go really fast, we're going to maybe not have the best quality. So making sure you have a conversation from the get-go of, yes, we'll take this on, here's what will come off, what do you expect to happen in the first period as your baseline, what can come later as building on top of that foundation. But it does take having a tough conversation. And the tough conversations get easier over time. But from my perspective, when you start with, hey, here's why I'm trying to help everybody here achieve their goal, rather than just one specific department, one specific person, bringing everybody along for that journey, everybody along for that change, understanding, tailoring messaging to those people along the way, bringing that together, expectations and communication, then you have the executive sponsorship and you have the planning, you become successful. Good question.
Great. Anybody else have something they want to throw out to challenge our, yeah, please.
Yeah, I've stumbled upon this issue where you try hard to strike a balance between how you design processes that are complementary within sales and marketing, at the same time keep sales people happier compared to others because you don't want to mess with them. And I also observed that they're the ones who are not very keen about experimenting with data or recording more data. But somehow there's also executive pressure on not adding more to the sales plate, even if you believe as a RevOps individual that this tiny change might give you more leverage on how to improve the whole process. So my understanding is, how do you strike that balance off while making sure that sales is not pissed off?
It's a great one.
You want to start?
Go ahead.
I think, again, it's a balance, and it goes back to what's in it for me, right? And when you design the process, how much of it can you automate, right? How much of it can you make it easier for them, right? A lot of time what I try to do is I shadow people. Tell me what you're doing in the day-to-day, show me how. And then it's a lot of questions, a lot of learning from them. Hey, if you do X, Y, and Z, what's the benefit for you? Do you like doing it that way? Okay, if I change it this way, how would you feel about it, right? So bringing them along, I think the one thing that I can take or give the most is it's super important to bring people along with you on the ride, right? Just imposing change, it's where you get a lot of resistance. But if people are already giving feedback throughout the process, and that's why the earliest you can bring people along with you, the better results you're going to get at the end. So if you're thinking of implementing a change overall, doesn't matter how big or how small, get someone to say, yes, this is helpful. Yes, I like it. Yes, this does something for me, right? They will be your champion throughout and will sell your work for you, right? And so you really want to make sure that if you're building, I don't know, I'll take an example, like we all love our sales playbooks, right? We all love them. Our sales hate them. That means that you're now asking me to fill 16 or 17 new fields for something that I don't really love. Can you automate and bring things from conversation AI, summaries? Can you think of automations from meetings or anything else that you can clean this for them, right, while capturing the data on their behalf? If not, all right, how can you make it easier so they don't need to do it all at once? Maybe you stagger it, right? You go and you talk through the sales team and saying, hey, if you do X, Y, and Z, how does that work for you? If I include this, does this give you a little bit? Now, at the end of the day, you also think of the results, to what Amie said. Like, how are we measuring this and what's the value that you're giving them? Saying, hey, if I, at the end of this change, can capture this X, Y, and Z and tell you that in 3 months you can achieve higher profitability or will that be beneficial for you? Would you be okay with the pain that you're experiencing? Right? It's a negotiation 90% of the time.
I like the question a lot. I'll take it to a personal example. When I came into my role in customer success first, I really started to understand that customers weren't onboarding successfully because there wasn't good handoffs between the sales team and the customer success team. So for me, that meant understanding why isn't sales leaving those notes for us? Why aren't they sharing those details with us? From there, I did these shadowings that she's referring to, and I understood that it's not that sales doesn't want to give us the information. It's just not part of their workflow. It's just not something that they were doing previously. So when I started to understand doing the workflows with them and seeing what their lives was like, I could see, wow, you're sitting here typing in the industry, you're sitting here typing in the address. How can we make life easier for you with those things? Once you realize it's a give and take, that if I'm going to ask you to fill in the industry and the address, you're going to then get later on something automated that's going to help you further. So what I was able to do in this example of the handoffs from customer success to sales, I saw that our sales team was manually inputting every single field on the opportunity. And that was already happening at the account and contact level. So I said, guys, let's just really easily automate. When your lead gets qualified, here's all the things that need to be filled in. It took a lot of work. It really did. It took understanding what is the workflow that sales wants versus what they have. How do I close those individual gaps? And then how do I make the information flow through? Actually, the Deal Hub CPQ that we use was a big part in making that possible, because what I found from the very get-go as I was doing the interviews with sales was, wow, a lot of this information actually comes from the customer to the salesperson, and then who knows how it makes it into the CRM. So the first path I went down was actually figuring out, how can the customer tell us who wants to be invoiced? How can the customer tell us what address they should be filling in? From there, we started looking into different tools, and we're a Microsoft Dynamics shop, so it was really also about which tools are integrating with that. I found actually just Adobe Sign is where I started, and Adobe Sign allows you to fill in some information and then later populate into a system. So we went down that path of exploring, should we build it in-house? Should we do Adobe Sign? What should this look like? One thing came to another, that Adobe Sign didn't have all the features we were looking for, didn't have all of the functionality we were looking for. So we took that extra mile to say, if we purchase a CPQ, what are the expectations we'll have for our results? What do we think will become more efficient for our sales teams? Through getting our CPQ for new logos implemented, we were able to take 90% of fields that were being filled in manually by the sales team to now have them automated through the guided selling process inside of our CPQ, and in the deal room where customers tell us, this is the address, this is who I want invoiced, this is who I want the renewal going through. Now the customer's in control of their own data, and we're not waiting on somebody else to fill it in. It's the customer telling us, and then customer success validating. You told us you want to accomplish this. How are we on track to do that, and what is our plan to do something like that? Long-winded, but that's how I'm working through it.
Great.
Cool. Anybody else want to offer a question? If not, we'll...
Yeah, please. We're here for you, so all
Okay.
questions are good.
Relatively new RevOps person, we launched our team about a year ago. And I think a challenge we've been having is we've had several quarters in a row of sales challenges, so there's like increased pressure on RevOps. And I think, because we're new, also, I'm wondering if you can share a little bit more about the balance between like getting, you shared a little bit, but like getting something out fast and knowing it's going to iterate too. So I think we're struggling a little bit with like, we're trying to get stuff in people's hands quickly, and there's a lot of change, so we're trying to balance that. So that's like one part. The other part's a little bit of like balance of time between like reactive, responding to things, and proactive work. And I think we're just kind of in that place right now, trying to figure out balance.
We are all figuring out the balance. There is no silver bullet, and that's a lot of what we've heard in these presentations as well. I'll jump right into this one because I feel comfortable on this topic as well. One of the things that I was able to do was to really build relationships with the end users. And to me, I'm getting constant from the executive team. Here's what we should focus on. Here's where we should spend our time. This is the shiny object. But I was finding that that didn't really match with what it felt like to be an end user, because to an end user, it's something new every day. Or our example earlier, 10 new things every single day. So I took the approach of understanding, how can I make their voice heard to the executive team? How can I make it super clear that we can't have 10 changes happening in a single week? We really need to pace the change that we're doing. So I took individual one-on-one conversations with a lot of different business managers, SDRs, and even customer success managers. And I said, tell me what it feels like. How is it going through all of these changes? Got these very honest feedbacks and these very honest how they were feeling about things. And I was able to bring this back to the executive team in a way that they understood. We needed more structure and we needed more planning. We needed to be able to say, as not the executive, but one level lower at the senior leadership team, how are we aligned when we say, hey, marketing has a new field, hey, sales has a new process? How are we aligned to say that there's a lot of things happening this week? Maybe I will be nice and say, it's not going to happen this week for marketing, it'll happen next week for marketing. But you have to have that conversation of, this is what it's actually like in the reality, and this is what you're asking me to do. You play that job of marrying those two things together and then setting the pace. The second thing that I did was to roll out a Change Champions program. So we talked already a little bit about it, but specifically in my experience, Change Champions have to be ones who step out and say, I'm willing to try first. I might fail, I might fall off the bike, but I'm willing to try because whatever pain I'm experiencing, I want that to go away. So I was able to build a couple of champions within each of those functions, and now on a reoccurring basis, they will come to me and they will say things like, hey, it was super cool that we were working on this project, but here's the effect of it. Or my customer didn't like that we made this change, here's how it's impacted me. So I now have a constant feedback loop of people who are ready and willing to try on new things, but also people who are saying, I don't like how we did this, let's do it better next time. So your change mindset and your growth mindset comes in with those individuals as well, and you start to teach them how to feel comfortable with change, how to adapt to things, and also how to overcome when you don't win at everything. It's impossible to win at everything. You have to be able to say, we did it together, we learned, and here's how we're doing it differently next time.
To echo Amy, we do something similar, but there's two things that I do a little differently. First is I try to understand a little bit what is the MVP, okay? And it's important to kind of scale down in terms of what is that you're actually trying to achieve, and then can we build on top of it, right? Which goes back to scalability, right? You want this big shiny object, which is lovely, and I really want to get you there. But what is really, really important? So a sentence that I say a lot is, can we crawl, walk, run, right? How can we start now and then build on to make sure that we can add the shiny bells to that little trinket that you're loving so much. I think the best thing that we can offer is that phased approach. So it's really important to say, all right, if we change it in small increments, you'll have a higher ability to adapt to it. So that's number one. The second thing is we have what we call philosophy. If you fail, fail fast and celebrate it because you've learned something, right? And make sure that your team around you, not just your RevOps team, but your champions, anyone that works with you on that specific project, understand that. Saying, we're going to try something. It's going to be new. It might not be perfect. And that's okay. We're going to take it and we'll pivot. And we're going to pivot quickly as we go through. So we're not really afraid of change. We celebrate change. And we know that we're going to fail, and failure is great. Right? It's not a negative connotation. And it's really important to instill that, because that's how you're able to give them the reassurance of something new is not always scary. And that's what people are usually adverse to, right? It's like, I'm so used to doing it this way. It's in my comfort zone. I know what I'm doing. Now you've implemented, I'll take your example, a CPQ system. I need to do all these things different. It was so easy. I could have just pushed like a Word doc and it was great. Now I have to go to different systems, right? But the question for me would be, hey, do you want to know how many customers you've actually registered that you gave X amount of percentage, right, of discount? Do you want to know how many product you've sold for this customer? Do you want to understand your land and expand motion? And taking it back and saying, hey, you know how handoff, for example, what's the first thing customer success wants to know once you sign a new customer? What did you sell them? Right? Being able to say, hey, now you don't need to do this long iterative like handoff doc. All the information automatically goes into this beautiful object that spits the information for them. So they already know what they're instilling. So all the sandboxes said it, the organization, the product is there, the communication is quick, and they're saying, you bought this, here it is. It's already ready for you, right? And so it's always showing the end results and telling them incrementally, I'll get you there, right? Now you can't always do that, and that's a longer, kind of like maybe an extra large t-shirt size project, and that's what I usually like to say. We're gonna think about the milestones. What does milestone look like, right? First launch will maybe be internal. Second launch might be X, Y, and Z. And so break it down and have those milestones very, very clear. So it's kind of like PMP 101. Like, how can you project manage it and bring people along with you on that ride?
I want to add more on the project management and the change management, because that is the critical piece, right? That's what we all have to understand, and we all have to have high emotional intelligence to allow us to work with so many different stakeholders and understand their individual stakeholder needs. My favorite change management model is from to because. And that's a Gartner model that basically explains we are moving from distributed, siloed way of working to maybe it's a combined way of working, a unified way of working, because our systems need to grow. We are no longer meeting the needs of what we previously had. When you have a consistent from to because sentence that you're sharing at the executive level and you're sharing at the individual level, it's very easy for people to put themselves in those shoes and understand, oh, I was doing this, now you expect me to do this, here's why I have to do it. Keeping that message consistent, and then I always jokingly say I go on a road show. It's like a road show. This is the sentence I use every single time I talk about that change. Why did we get a CPQ? Because the way we were quoting previously did not allow us to quote our customers at large in a professional way. So we moved from Excel-based quotes, don't we all love those, into the ability to have this CPQ that allows all of your fields to be automatically filled in for you. You're of course customizing when you have the deals that you need to, but most things become streamlined, and then sales is closing a deal in 3 minutes compared to the 30 minutes, 2 hours they were previously doing before. And then it's also about the snowball effect, right? As you have these little wins, as you have these champions who believe in the work that you're doing, they spread that positive energy and that positive momentum throughout your organization. So don't also try to bite off the whole sandwich in the beginning. Just really try to get a couple of champions and really try to understand who are the people who want to be out there running, who are the people who want to be a leader with their peers. If you can convince them, everybody else will come there with time. And that's where you should spend your effort.
One thing I do want to call out, you'll always have that negative Nelly who is going to say, this is horrible, I don't even like it, and there's a little bit of a culture.
You're talking about me, the CRO, right?
Not always, not always. Most time my CRO is my champion.
Oh, okay.
If I do
That's
my
good.
job right. But it's important to call and take them with you, right? So how do you convert those negative Nellies into your champions, right? So how can you make sure their voice is heard? It's really hard for someone to be negative or criticize something when they were part of the work, right? Because at that point, they're criticizing themselves. And so bring those people sometimes along. If you have those people who are being heard in your organization and they're the ones that people follow, and they're kind of like your negative people, bring them with you. Change their culture, change their perception. Let them help lead, because that's what they want to do at the end of the day. Please.
Yeah, please.
Oh, thanks. So it's all very validating because I feel like I've been building my team for the last 8 years at the same company. And I will say we've been now pretty ops respected, kind of dominated in some ways. We didn't have a sales leader or CGO for a year at one point, and ops really led, which is really awesome. But over the last couple of years, a lot of companies are experiencing 80% inbound to 80% outbound business, which means you've got tenured reps that need to go prospect, right? And at the same time, the pace of innovation has increased so much, so you also have to teach them a bunch of new things to sell. And we try to solve, right, being ops people, better territories, more data, all this stuff, new processes. When does ops stop and you need to tell product marketing, which have been anemic potentially for years because they were relying on old products, old features to get us there, and old marketing practices because we had an inbound model. They have to change their job. When is it time to say, ops can't solve this anymore? We've taken it 90%. Where's that last 10%?
So
When
it's
you
a
have a
really
seat at the
good
table.
one.
Yeah.
Do you want to take it or do you want me
Go
to?
ahead.
So first of all, I think it's really important to call out Steve's sessions from earlier this morning. Your charter, and if you don't have one, I highly recommend you building it. It's the first thing I do when I join every company. And that is to help me categorize, saying this is what I can do, right? But it's also important for you as an operational leader to build that army that is outside of your team, right? So for me, I have a one-on-one with marketing, I have a one-on-one with product, I have a one-on-one with sales, I have with CS, and it's really important. And obviously, I have one-on-one with engineering, guys. Like for me, it's really important because the way our engineering and our product set impact our stability of our product, which impacts sales, which impact marketing. If you think of launches and everything, it's all intertwined. So the way I think about my role is I am the person, I'm the glue who helps bring the rest of the company along on the ride. And that's where I'm saying, I need help. I can't do it, right? This is where you are fully, I call it vulnerable a little bit, and saying, in order for this project to be successful, I need your help, okay? We have aligned that this is a company priority. Would you be able to share resources? And if so, and if you need help, let me help you in terms of what I can do for you to get you, but this is what I need you to own. And it's a lot of people forget that, racy is not a dirty word, right? It's a helpful to say, I'm going to help and consult you. I'm going to support you. However, at the end of the day, you need to be responsible for it. So my recommendation would always be saying, what is it that you can align? And maybe you are the accountable, but not the responsible. Maybe you are the consulted, but not the accountable. Right? And how can you team and partner with the other arms of the organization to help? But most likely you will be that glue to go and say, all right, now marketing is going to do this. Now product is going to do this. And be very open with your executive team holistically to say, I am going to help maybe oversee the project. And then marketing, how are you doing on this? Product, how are you doing on this? What do you need help with? What can we as a board, as a panel, help support you on? And so when you're sharing that responsibility, they come up with their own ideas. And then it's a little bit more of a collaborative partnership approach.
And your experience is the last 10%, hey, this isn't working, or this is gonna be okay, and now somebody just has to maintain it. What are you seeing right now?
I would say more so, hey, ops kind of gave you the Band-Aid before that product was ready with a little bit different territories or a different sales motion or a better prospecting motion, so you can kind of wiggle your way in before the big launch happens or before that thing on the roadmap for 2026 is ready, the selling ahead motion. It's where does that, we got you 90% of the way there, your kind of creativity to fill that gap or get us to that next level as we go up market, it's got to come from a great marketing idea potentially or a better, sales motion overall, which needs to come from a sales leader with ops. Obviously ops support is the glue in between all of those things, but where is it that I can't build you a perfect territory today for the thing that we can sell tomorrow? It's that last, I've got you 90% of the way there, but it's not going to be perfect if you all don't kind of bring your pieces of the pie together.
One of the things, so you're talking specifically about territory planning and structure, I think that also go back to the strategic planning. So remember, like, a lot of time that people always come to us and say, could you just build me a report? It'd be really great. And I'm like, the report is really the lipstick on the pig. I don't care what shade of lipstick it is. I need the pig, right? And so, like, ideally, you don't just create, like, an object from nothing, right? So you need to have the strategic planning first. Where is the company trying to go? What is it you're trying to achieve? So if you think of territories, you first want to go to your TAM, SAM, and SOM, right? And you're saying, SOM is what I can do right now. Forget about what you want to do. So if you want to get to that, what is the big bets that we're willing to go and align on from a strategic level, right? So you can say, hey, for this year, this is the box. This is our SOM. This is what I can plan for. I can go and get the metrics for it. I can go and understand the planning. I can tell you my recommendation. I can't tell you how to get there without your cooperation. And that's when you want to bring the leadership in and kind of help them saying, this is where I am seeing some of the gaps. I'm hearing you say X, Y, and Z. Is that accurate? So a lot of time is kind of like paraphrasing and kind of re-talking and helping them understand what they're asking for, right? And so bring them along saying, hey, I hear you saying you want to build for the future. That's great. I want to get there. How do you see the future today? Does that align with the future that you have tomorrow, your idealistic notion? No. Okay. How are you thinking to get there? Do you want to do it by partnership? Do you want to do it by building new product? Do you want to, because these are different ways for us to go through those things. They're going to be different motions, right? Okay, you want to go that motion. What do you want to measure? How do you know that it's successful for you, right? And then start breaking them. So ask a lot of questions, but let them lead you through it. You just help them, I guess, form their ideas into something coherent that we can action.
Funny way to say it, but yeah, absolutely. From my perspective, it also comes down to the relationships with those executives who are pushing those things too, right? Is your executive an open and honest enough person that you're having that same kind of conversation with them? Hey, RevOps brought it 90% here. What is the expectation you have for this last 10%? Because you'd be surprised if something is running from CFO support, you ask them, hey, RevOps has done this, for example, of putting a governance together on a specific payment term, let's say. Payment terms have to be this, and the CFO says it has to be that way in the system. So you get everything done in the systems, you get all the technology working correctly, and then that 10% of telling sales, hey, these are the new payment terms, this is how things have to run. at that point, from my perspective, the CFO needs to talk to the CRO and say, hey, we've done 90% of this, you need to do the last 10% of reinforcement. That reinforcement part is probably some of the most important pieces of it too, right? Getting to a decision was made, and now you might not agree, we can even agree to disagree, but we're gonna commit to it together. So having those honest conversations, sometimes uncomfortable, but being able to say, okay, CFO decided these are the payment terms. They have their own conversations, CFO and CRO, to get on the same page. But once they do, it's clear that RevOps got you here, and now the sales leaders, specifically even in regions, right? Just because of the CRO making the decision, the reinforcement comes from the managers of the individual reps and also the regional leaders of those specific sales teams.
One thing I will add, don't wait for other people to have conversations with each other. That doesn't always happen. A lot of times, it's gonna be on you to go and make sure those conversations happen, and it's better if you're in the room. I'm just gonna say that. It's better when you're in the room and have some voice and kind of at least hear what they're saying. So a lot of time, what I try to do is saying, hey, I hear you saying that you want these type of requirements. I'm hearing other people are asking for other things. Is it okay if we have a meeting, the three of us, the four of us, so I can get the right information and you guys can confirm that you're on the same page, right? That alone, to put like your CFO and your CRO, your CEO and the chief of product, whoever it is that you're together and saying, this is what we're trying to accomplish, kind of frame exactly what you're trying to accomplish. Never go into a meeting for the sake of a meeting, right? Always say, this is the agenda, this is what I'm trying to achieve out of this. Right? Here's the context. I've been hearing you saying X, I'm hearing you saying Y. How do you feel these will align in order to get X, which is the joint effort? Are we still in alignment on this? Are we seeing different things? You might get out of the meeting in a completely different world, thinking about completely different terminology in terms of what you just came into. So bring those people together and scheduling that call, which is probably 90% of what I do day to day, is making sure people speak the same language.
Absolutely. Any others? What challenges do you have in efficiencies and scaling?
Resources.
Resources.
That's, for my company, there's not enough of us. So I really like the charter conversation because I think that will help a little bit.
Yeah.
But it also help justify if we can ever get a head count. We could be more specific about what we need, so.
I'll take it first. Does your organization align to strategic initiatives or any other kind of framework?
In theory. I mean, in theory, yeah, but I mean, I think everybody probably has this. It's really hard to stick to that and push back on sometimes on things. And we do that sometimes, like you were saying, like, that dashboard sounds really cool. This is what I can see why your reps would really like it. Is it going to help them sell better or bring in more pipeline or close more deals, or is it just a cool thing for them that would be useful but doesn't help them do their job?
Exactly.
A lot of time, again, I think resources are great, but it's a negotiation, right? And prioritization. I'm like, that's great. I would love to work on it. However, you've also asked me to do this. Between this and this, what's more important to you? What will get the...
I've been doing that more, like, I mean, I've always said, like, when do you need this by? Because they just assume that we're just sitting here waiting for their requests. So I do that a lot.
You weren't looking at me when you said that, right? At the CRO.
Maybe, no. But, you know, I mean, it's asking those questions, because I think, I mean, at least for my company, like, they don't think about that, they just ask.
And that's... Honestly, a lot of people forget to ask, that's great, when do you need this by? It's a great first question. But I'm saying, like, what are you trying to achieve with that? What are you trying to measure with it? What's the benefit of implementing that, right? You don't need a project plan for every single thing, right? No, but it's like,
I always tell them that we do our own, like, you know how the salespeople do discovery calls? Mm-hmm. When somebody makes a request for us, I'm going to do the same thing. I mean, not maybe a half-hour call, but like same thing, like, hey, can I get a report that... And they sometimes tell me which fields to use and everything, and I'm like,
wow.
Well, you tell me what you're trying to find or learn, and I'll take care of getting you the right information.
And that's great. A lot of times you say, like, don't tell me how.
Yeah.
Tell me what and why, right? And the when is after for me,
I know.
but I'm just like, start with the what and why, right? And then let me figure out if it's something that I can do really quickly for you or if it's not. The other thing that I do is, I don't know how most people work. I used to be a scrum master for engineering and manage a team of 50 engineers. So the one thing,
Really good skill.
it was something. So one of the things that I actually took out from that is sprint planning. We have a week sprints because it's really short and things change on the day to day. And we're beginning of every sprint, I say, we're gonna plan 60% of our week and the other 40% is whatever thrown our way, right? And then we're gonna see, can we? You can always bring in more tasks and more responsibilities, but then when you project plan and saying, hey, we wanna do this, and you break it into the tasks that you need to do and you give it like a score, right? And we literally have the full minutia of sprint planning. We have story points, we have assignments, we know the scalability, we plan it. And then I can say, this is how many hours or how many weeks or how many months it's gonna take me to implement it if I do it full time. However, if I'm gonna break it and I can only do X amount in a given week, this is how long it's gonna take me, right? The other piece that we do to it is we do kind of like a retrospect in a given week with my team. And we're saying, what was pushed out because other thing took priority? And those are the things that I bring in. So like for my company, I'm on the executive team, and I, every week, sends, we call it a business plan review of what is it we're prioritizing for this week, what is our project statuses, and where are we having issues, and what do we need them to make decisions on. And so those are things that I bring into them, and I send it in an email first before the meeting, and then I talk about it in the meeting. And we do it every single week. And that's where I go in and I tell them, here is what we planned. This has never happened because you guys asked for this, this, and this.
But if they can see it consistently, I think it drives home the point.
Yeah.
There's only so much time and only so many people. You know, it just helps. And before they make another request, which may be very important, but at least they know what else is like to be considered.
100%. And that helps me drive the negotiation. It just helps drive the conversation, right? Saying, I really, really love this. And I can tell you when I started like the big 3 projects, like literally it's like, I want you to fix attribution, NPS, and feature request. And I'm like, great, love it. You understand each of those is a beast of its own that's gonna take me 4 or 5 months to accomplish. And they're like, no, just, you've got this.
Yeah.
So like the ability to tell them, all right.
You're like, sure, well then I'll just give you what I think it is and I'll move on.
I'm like, yeah, I got it for you. It's great. The ability to say, great, within the first month, this is what you're going to be able to see, right? And then you're going to build on it. Like within a month and a half, I was able to show them MVP of attribution, right? Here's your rules. Here's the structure. This is what it's going to look like. Are you in agreement that this is how we're going to call it, right? And then we're seeing the data, right? And then I can hold a meeting on attribution saying, here's our pipeline goals, here's our demands, here's how we're looking, are we aligned, marketing, you're not doing this, sales, you're not doing this, partners, nowhere to be found, like how are you aligned, right? And then are we pacing to goal, are we aligning on these? So the areas, right? Other things and saying, you know what, out of those 3 that you've asked me to work with, what's number 1, number 2, or number 3? And if I don't get to number 3, how big of a pain would it be? So we can put timelines. So that I did a product roadmap, so to speak, for me, and said, I can get these in Q1, this in Q2, this in Q4. And I looked at it. So it's really important that you walk in and you do like a big audit and an assessment of all the areas that needs to be improved. And then you call out based on what I'm seeing, the issues and priorities, this is my recommendation. Please help me change it along these lines, right? You're the voice. And then I'm able to take them along on the ride with me. And now I have my sponsor, I have a person, and they're the one who are now communicating, right? When I'm saying I'm gonna do something, I have my CRO telling everyone this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing. When I do a training, I have the managers or the AEs helping to give the training with me. I always like to have someone to speak on my behalf, so it's not like, hey, Ayelet said or Ayelet did, right? But I always encourage them to come back to me after and say, help me. How can I do better? How can I, and I'm asking them too, how can I do better?
Right. Thank you.
I think we'll have to end it there because we're at time. I don't, did you want to have a last
Yeah, just-
30 seconds?
Yeah, quick add on that. The reason that I asked about strategic initiatives is because that's what I use to ground a lot of the work that I do. I basically, on a monthly basis, am meeting with the members of the executive team who agreed these are the priorities for this quarter or this month, whatever it may be. And then we have honest conversations of this is on time, this is not. And then I have this opportunity to bring something we've heard here as well is good, better, best. If I have this capacity, this is the best that I can do. If I have this capacity, this is as good as it can be, and then just from there. But that helps me also to really ground that you're gonna get a piece of what you want. You're not gonna get everything you want if you ask for the entire kitchen sink.
Yeah, and that builds the business case to have more resources brings in.
Right.
So I think we'll close it up there. It's actually been a very interesting session. Amie, Ayelet, thank you so much. Thank you for your questions.
Thanks for the
Thank you.
questions.